The night was unusually quiet, not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that makes the air feel heavy like something is watching. Daniel Carter noticed it the moment he stepped out of his truck. The forest around him stood completely still. No wind, no insects. No distant sounds of animals moving through the trees, just silence. Daniel checked his watch, 3:47 a.m. He sighed and rubbed his tired eyes. Working the night shift as a security patrol officer for the remote government research zone was never exciting. Most nights were just endless driving through empty road and scanning the perimeter fence. But tonight something felt wrong. He leaned against the truck door for a moment, staring into the dark forest stretching beyond the fence. Tall pine trees formed thick shadows under the moonlight. The research facility behind him glowed faintly with cold white lights and humming generators. Daniel was about to get back into the truck when he heard it. A sound. Very faint. Enough, almost like someone crying. He froze. The sound came again. Soft, weak, and definitely not an animal. Daniel slowly turned the forefoot out. He called out. His voice disappeared into the trees. No answer. For a moment, he considered ignoring it. The forest was off limits territory, and security protocol clearly said to report strange sounds, not investigate them. But the cry came again. This time it sounded desperate. Daniel grabbed his flashlight. Great. He muttered under his breath. He pushed open the gate beside the fence and stepped into the forest. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating fallen branches and damp leaves under his boots. The deeper he walked, the colder the air became. After about 30 steps, he noticed something strange. The trees ahead looked different, not broken, not burned, but bent, as if something extremely powerful had forced them aside. Daniel frowned. What the hell happened here? He stepped closer. And then he saw it, a clearing, perfectly circular. The ground inside the clearing was blackened, as if lightning had struck the earth. But there had been no storms tonight. At the center of the clearing, something metallic shimmered under the moonlight. Daniel slowly approached. His heart began beating faster. The object looked like a capsule. Smooth silver, about the size of a small car. Its surface reflected the moonlight like liquid metal, but the most unsettling part was the deep crack running along its side, like it had crash landed. Daniel's mind raced. A military drone, a secret experiment, or something else entirely. He stepped closer. The capsule suddenly made a faint humming noise, jumped back. The crack along the surface slowly widened. A thin mist escaped from inside. Cold air spread across the clearing. Okay, that's definitely not normal, Daniel whispered. The opening widened further, and then a small hand appeared. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. A girl slowly crawled out of the capsule. She collapsed onto the ground. For a moment, Daniel couldn't move. The girl looked human, but not completely enough. Her long hair shimmered silver under the moonlight, almost glowing. Her skin had a faint bluish tone enough, and her clothes, if they were clothes, looked like they were made from some kind of flowing light. She tried to stand, but her legs trembled and she fell again. Daniel finally snapped out of his shock. Hey, easy, he said quickly, stepping forward. The girl looked up at him, and Daniel felt his entire body freeze. Her eyes, they weren't normal. They glowed softly like tiny galaxies filled with swirling light. Fear filled her face the moment she saw him. Now, she quickly crawled backward, pressing herself against the broken capsule. Daniel raised both hands. I'm not going to hurt you, he said gently. The girl stared at him, breathing fast, like a trapped animal. Daniel's brain struggled to process what he was seeing. This couldn't be real. Aliens didn't just crash in forests. But there she was, cold, alone. Are you hurt? He asked slowly. She didn't answer. She simply watched him. Then something strange happened. Daniel heard a voice, but the girl's lips never moved. The voice echoed softly inside his head. Please, Daniel stumbled backward in shock. What? The voice came again, clearer this time, but still inside his mind. Please don't let them find me. Daniel's heart started pounding. Who? The girl looked toward the distant lights of the research facility glowing through the trees. Terror filled her glowing eyes. Thee took others. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean others? Suddenly, distant sounds echoed through the forest. Voices, human voices. Flashlights appeared between the trees. Search team. Daniel turned toward the sound. Men in black uniforms were moving through the forest. Government agents, and they were coming straight toward the clearing. The girl grabbed Daniel's sleeve. Her hand was freezing cold. Her glowing eyes pleaded with him. Please, for a moment, Daniel stood frozen. Helping her would mean breaking every rule he had. It could cost him his job, maybe even his freedom. But when he looked at her face, he didn't see a threat. He saw fear, real fear. The searchlights were getting closer. Voices shouted in the distance. Out, check the crash zone. Daniel looked back at the girl, then at the approaching agents, then back at her again. He made a decision. Come with me, he whispered. He grabbed her hand, and together they disappeared deeper into the dark forest. Daniel didn't stop running until the voices behind them faded into the distance. Branches scratched against his jacket as he pushed deeper into the forest, pulling the strange girl along with him. His flashlight beam jumped wildly across the trees, lighting patches of moss, rocks, and fallen logs. Finally, when the forest grew quiet again, Daniel slowed down. His chest was burning. He turned around. The girl had collapsed onto her knees. Her breathing was shallow, almost trembling. For a moment, Daniel simply stared at her. The reality of what had just happened finally caught up with him. He had just run away from government agents with an alien, a real alien. His heart pounded harder. The girl looked fragile in the pale moonlight. Her silver hair shimmered softly as it fell around her shoulders, reflecting the faint glow of the night sky. Her skin still carried that unusual bluish tint, like moonlight frozen into flesh. But it was her eyes that made Daniel uneasy. They glowed faintly in the darkness, not bright enough to illuminate the forest, just enough to remind him she didn't belong on Earth. Daniel took a careful step backward. Okay, hold on, he said, trying to steady his breathing. This doesn't make sense. The girl lifted her head slowly. She looked exhausted, terrified, and completely lost. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The forest remained silent around them. Daniel rubbed his forehead, trying to think clearly. Everything inside him screamed that he should run. Call someone, report this, turn her over to the authorities. But another part of him, a quieter part, noticed something else. The girl wasn't threatening. She wasn't aggressive enough. She wasn't even trying to escape anymore. She just sat there, hugging her arms tightly around herself as if tray-warm, shivering. Daniel frowned. The girl looked up at him again. Her glowing eyes locked onto his face. And then the strange thing happened again. A voice appeared inside his mind. Soft, weak. Daniel froze. His eyes widened. You're doing that again. But the girl tilted her head slightly, confused. I am speaking. No, Daniel said quickly. Your mouth isn't moving. She blinked slowly. Then she glanced at his lips when he spoke. Realization slowly appeared on her face. You use sound. Daniel let out a nervous laugh. Well, yeah, that's usually how talking works. She seemed to think about that for a moment. Then she tried to speak aloud. A strange broken sound came out, something between a whisper and a melody. She stopped immediately, frustrated. Daniel waved his hand. No, it's okay. The brain thing works. He paused, yes. For the first time since they met, the girl studied him more carefully, not with fear, with curiosity. Her glowing eyes moved across his face, the flashlight in his hand. Then she pointed at him slowly. You help me? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Well, yeah. The girl looked toward the distant direction of the facility, lights barely visible through the trees. Her expression darkened. The captured travelers, Daniel's stomach tight. Travelers, she nodded faintly. From other worlds. A cold chill ran down his spine. You saying they've done this before? The girl didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lowered her gaze to the ground. Her fingers tightened around the dirt beneath her. I escaped. Her voice in his mind trembled, but others did not. Daniel swallowed hard. He suddenly felt sick. He had worked security for the facility for almost 2 years. He had never questioned what really happened inside those buildings. He had always assumed it was advanced, rich, experimental technology, government secrets. But this was something else. He looked at the girl again. She didn't look like a monster. She didn't look a threat. She looked like someone who had been hunted, trapped. The idea made his stomach twist. A cold wind suddenly passed through the trees. The girl flinched instantly. Her body tensed as if expecting danger. Daniel noticed. He relaxed. He said gently, "No one's here." She didn't respond. Her glowing eyes scanned the forest nervously. Daniel sighed. Enough. He slowly removed his jacket and stepped forward. The girl immediately pulled back in fear. "It's okay," he said softly, kneeling down a few feet away. "I'm just giving you this." He carefully placed the jacket on the ground between them. Then he stepped back. The girl stared at the jacket for several seconds, then slowly reached forward. Her fingers touched the fabric cautiously, as if she expected it to bite. Finally, she pulled it around her shoulders. The oversized jacket nearly swallowed her small frame, but her shivering stopped. For the first time, her tense posture relaxed slightly. She looked up at Daniel again. Something in her glowing eyes had changed. The fear was still there, but it wasn't directed at him anymore. "You are not like them," she said in his mind. Daniel shrugged awkwardly. "I don't even know what they are doing, to be honest." A silence settled between them again. The forest seemed darker now, deeper. Far away, a helicopter bladed code faintly through the night. "Search teams." Daniel cursed under his breath. "They're still looking." The girl stiffened again. Daniel raised his hands calmly. Hey, it's all right. For a moment, he hesitated. Then he said something he never expected to say in his life. Look, I don't know where you came from." He pointed up toward the sky. "But if those people are hunting you," he sighed. "Then I guess you're safer with me." The girl stared at him in silence. Her glowing eyes reflected the faint moonlight filtering through the trees. Then slowly, very slowly, she nodded. And for the first time since their strange encounter began, Daniel realized something important. The alien girl wasn't dangerous. She was just scared. Daniel could still hear the helicopter in the distance. The sound floated above the forest like a predator circling its prey. Every few seconds, a beam of light swept across the treetops, enough searching, scanning, hunting. He looked down at the girl sitting on the forest floor, wrapped inside his jacket. Her glowing eyes followed every move in the sky. A fear had returned to her face. Not the nervous fear of someone lost, the deep fear of someone who had been captured before and knew exactly what would happen if they were caught again. Daniel exhaled slowly. His mind felt like it was splitting in two. One side screamed logic. "You need to report this. You work for the facility. This is way above your clearance. Helping her could destroy your life." But the other side, the quieter side, kept reminding him of something else. The way she had trembled when the helicopter passed overhead. The way she had said they captured travelers. The way her voice inside his mind had sounded when she begged him not to let them find her. Daniel clenched his jaw. He had never considered himself a hero. He was just a man trying to pay rent and survive another boring shift. He didn't save the world. He fixed broken security lights. Yet somehow tonight the universe had placed something impossible in front of him, and now it was waiting for him to decide. The girl slowly stood up. She looked weak, like every movement cost her energy. Her eyes searched the dark forest as if trying to remember something. Then she looked back at Daniel. "Your people are coming." Her voice in his mind sounded quieter now, almost fading. Daniel noticed it too. "You're hurt," he said. She didn't deny it. The crash damaged the vessel. Daniel glanced in the direction of the clearing where he had found her. The broken capsule. If the agents found it, they would know exactly what had happened, which meant they would know someone helped her escape, which meant Daniel sighed. His life was already complicated enough. But the moment he looked at her again, he realized something painful. He already knew what he was going to do. He just hadn't admitted it yet. Another helicopter passed overhead. The girl flinched again. That was the moment Daniel made his decision. All right, he said quietly. The girl looked at him. You said you escaped. She nodded. But you still need to leave Earth, right? Yes. Then we need to move. The girl tilted her head slightly. You will help me. Daniel laughed nervously. I'm starting to regret it already. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking fast. The crash site is too close to the facility. They'll search there first. Butler, the girl, listened carefully. So we go somewhere else. Daniel nodded. There's an old ranger road about a mile from here. Nobody patrols it at night. He pointed deeper into the forest. If we reach it, I can get my truck. The girl studied him carefully. Her glowing eyes seemed to search his thoughts. You would risk your life for someone you do not know. Daniel shrugged. I guess I just don't like the idea of my planet kidnapping visitors. For a moment, silence passed between them. Then the girl did something unexpected. She stepped closer, very slowly, carefully, as if she was approaching a wild animal that might run away. Then she placed her hand gently over his. Her skin felt cold, but the moment she touched him, spread through his chest. Not physical warmth, something deeper, something emotional, gratitude, pure and overwhelming. Thank you. The words echoed clearly inside his mind. Daniel suddenly felt embarrassed. Yeah, well, don't thank me yet. We're not safe. As if on cue, voices echoed faintly through the forest again. Closer this time, flashlights cut through the darkness between the trees. Search teams were spreading wider. Then Daniel's heart skipped a beat. They're faster than I thought. He grabbed his flashlight and turned it off. Darkness immediately swallowed the forest. Stay close to me, he whispered. The girl nodded. Daniel started walking carefully through the trees, moving away from the searchlights. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of the forest, because of the choice he had just made. Helping her escape meant betraying the people he worked for. If they caught him, he wouldn't just lose his job. He could disappear the same way the alien travelers had. But strangely, Daniel didn't stop walking. The girl followed closely beside him, holding onto the sleeve of his shirt like she was afraid he might vanish. After several minutes of walking in silence, she spoke again. You're a frat. Daniel chuckled quietly. Very thin. Why continue? Daniel thought about the question. It was a fair one. Most people would have turned in already. But Daniel remembered something his father used to say when he was a kid. Doing the right thing rarely feels safe. He looked at the girl walking beside him, a being from another world. Lost, hunted, completely alone. He sighed softly, because if I don't help you, he glanced back toward the distant lights of the facility. Or then nobody will. The girl looked at him for a long moment. Her glowing eyes softened. Then she spoke again, quieter than before. You are different from the others. Daniel smiled faintly. Let's hope that doesn't get us both captured. Ahead through the trees, a narrow dirt road slowly appeared, pointed toward it. That's our way out. The girl followed his gaze. For the first time since he had met her, hope flickered across her face. And together, under the dark, silent sky, they continued walking toward freedom. The dirt road appeared through the trees like a thin scar cutting across the forest. Daniel stopped at the edge of the woods and raised his hand, signaling the girl to stay still. She froze instantly. Moonlight spilled across the empty road, illuminating dust, scattered stones, and the faint tire marks from maintenance vehicles. But something wasn't right. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Two beams of light suddenly appeared from the distance. Headlights, a black security vehicle slowly rolled down the road toward them. Daniel cursed quietly under his breath. Great, just great. The girl looked at him, confusion filling her glowing eyes. What is it? Patrol car. He whispered. If they see us, this night gets a lot worse. The vehicle continued moving closer, its tires crunching softly against gravel. Daniel quickly pulled the girl back into the shadows of the trees. Stay low, he said. They crouched behind thick fallen log just a few feet from the road. Enough. Daniel could hear the engine getting louder. The headlights grew brighter. His heart began pounding again. He had dealt with patrols many times before, but this was different. Tonight, he wasn't one of them. Tonight, he was hiding from them. Beside him, the girl remained perfectly still, but Daniel could feel the tension in her body. Her eyes reflected the approaching lights like glowing stars. The vehicle slowed. Too slow. Daniel's stomach tightened. They're checking the road, he muttered quietly. The car crept forward, scanning the forest edges. A spotlight suddenly flicked on. A powerful beam of white light swept across the trees. Daniel's breath caught. The light moved across the branches, the leaves, the ground, getting closer. He gently grabbed the girl's wrist and pulled her lower behind the log. "Don't move," he whispered. The spotlight slid across the road again. Then suddenly it stopped right on the forest edge. Daniel felt his pulse hammering in his ears. One of the guards inside the vehicle leaned forward. "Hold on," a voice said from the car. "I thought I saw something." Daniel froze completely. The girl's fingers tightened around his sleeve. The spotlight shifted slightly, only a few feet away from where they were hiding. Daniel's mind raced. If the guards stepped out of the vehicle, they were finished. He slowly scanned the ground around them. A small rock sat beside his hand. Not big, but heavy enough. He picked it up carefully. The girl looked at him, confused. Daniel raised a finger to his lips. Silence. Then he threw the rock as far as he could into the deeper forest behind. The rock smashed into a tree with a loud crack. Both guards immediately reacted. What was that? It sounded like something running. The spotlight swung away from the road and into the darker forest where the rock had landed. Branches rustled in the distance. Held his breath. The guard inside the car opened the door. For a terrifying moment, Daniel thought he was about to walk toward them. But instead, the man stepped out and moved toward the opposite side of the forest. The spotlight followed him. "Probably just a deer," the second guard said from the vehicle. The first guard replied. "Command said something crashed out here tonight." Daniel's chest tightened. The crash site. They knew enough. The guard kicked at the leaves as he walked deeper into the trees. Daniel realized this was their only chance. He leaned close to the girl's ear. "When I say run, we cross the road." She nodded silently. The guard moved even farther into the forest, chasing the noise. The spotlight beam drifted with him. The second guard stayed inside the car, distracted by a radio call crackling through the speaker. Daniel waited. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Then he whispered, "No." They burst from the trees. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand and sprinted across the dirt road. Their boots barely made a sound against the gravel, but halfway across, the car radio suddenly went silent. The guard inside turned his head. "What the?" Daniel shoved the girl forward. "Move." They dove into the trees on the other side, just as the guard's voice shouted behind them. "Hey!" The spotlight snapped back toward the road. Daniel didn't stop running. Branches whipped across his face as they pushed deeper into the forest. Behind them, the engine roared to life. "Stop! Security!" The girl stumbled over a root, but Daniel caught her arm before she fell. "Keep going." The beam of the spotlight flashed wildly between the trees behind them. Shouts echoed through the darkness. "T went this way." Daniel's lungs burned. But finally, after what felt like forever, the sound of the vehicle began to fade. The spotlight disappeared behind the trees. The shouting grew distant. Then silence returned. Daniel didn't feel enough, and Daniel slowed down and leaned against a tree, gasping for air. The girl stood beside him, breathing quickly but steady. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Daniel laughed softly, shaking his head. That was way too close. The girl looked back through the forest where the lights had vanished. Fear still lingered in her glowing eyes, but something else was there now, too. "Trust, you protected me," she said inside his mind. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead. "Let's just say we're officially in trouble now." He looked ahead through the trees. Far in the distance, barely visible through the darkness, a faint outline appeared, an old wooden ranger cabin. And beside it, his truck. Daniel pointed toward it. "That's our ride." The girl followed his gaze. Hope flickered across her face again. But behind them, deep in the forest, a distant helicopter blade began echoing through the night. The search wasn't over.